Hey there everybody, Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Top 10 Songs. Today we're going to take a look at one of the greatest female rock vocalists of the last 40 years, Pat Benatar. Alright, so here we have a singer who had great pipes, great voice I should say. She looked great. Her husband played lead guitar with her, co-wrote most of the songs. A fantastic formula. They started off as more of their music started off kind of like hard rock, and eventually through the 80s morphed into more of a pop band. And then in the 90s they kind of reinvented themselves and did like rhythm and blues and more kind of AOR type stuff, a little mellower music. I think most of us remember from the stuff from 1979 through probably the end of the 80s. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I really haven't listened to much of the more traditional blues and mellower stuff that they've done post 1990. So I've heard some things here and there, but I'm really going to kind of focus on, the very first album up through Wide Awake in Dreamland, which kind of closed out the 80s for them. So why don't we get started with my number 10. All right, I'm going to pull a mulligan here today, guys. I don't do this too often, but I'm going to do it today. I'm going to do a tie for number 10 because I couldn't leave either one of these songs off, and they didn't quite fit into my top 10 perfectly. One had to go. And I was like, you know what? Pulling a mulligan today. I'm going to do a tie for number 10. So tie for number 10 is Love is a Battlefield from the Live from Earth album, which was a live album with a couple studio tracks tied in at the end. And Love is a Battlefield was one of the studio tunes. Big hit for Pat and the band. The other tune off of the Seven the Hard Way album is the gorgeous Le Bel Age, all right, which is a song I've really grown to appreciate in more recent times. Back in the day, I kind of didn't really think too much of it, but it's a really great song, one of the better songs from that album, and I dig it a lot, so I had to squeeze it on here somewhere. That was like my late inclusion. I'm like, I cannot leave Le Bel Age off this list. So it comes in a tie for number 10. So, number 9, let's go to the Get Nervous album, Tell It To Her. I always really liked that song a lot. Not really a hit for the band. I know they played it on FM radio a bit, but that wasn't like a hit single. But that's a really good deep album track from that album, which is a decent album. Again, we're talking like, mid-80s, so very 80s style production, a lot of synths and keyboards and whatnot. But that's got a great vocal from Pat. It's really catchy. Always really dug that song. Comes in at number 9. Number 8, from Precious Time. Really solid album. Fire and Ice. I mean, Pat's just like kind of longing vocal in that. It's kind of a rocker, but it's really melodic. I really dig it. Again, a minor hit for her, and a favorite of mine. Number 7. Let's go back to the first album. Why don't we? In the Heat of the Night is the first album. The song we're picking here is for number 7 is We Live for Love, which written by Neil Giraldo, her husband and lead guitar player. It's weird because that song almost doesn't kind of fit with the kind of template of those first 2 albums, which were filled with covers, more in a hard rock vein, and then you have this really gorgeous kind of pop song with a very, very high-pitched vocal from Pat. All right? You would think that a tune like that would have sat better in one of like the mid to late 80s releases, but it works out just fine, right? It's a great tune no matter when they released it, what album it was on. So that's one of my favorites of the in the Heat of the Night album. But of course I don't like it as much as the next one, also from the same album, from the debut album, Heartbreaker. That was I'm not sure whether it was We Live for Love or Heartbreaker that kind of broke first as a single for Pat and the band. I think it was Heartbreaker was the first single. And I remember hearing that on the radio, local guy here, WPDH 101.5 in Poughkeepsie, New York. They used to play Heartbreaker all the time. I'm like, wow, who is this chick singer with this rockin' tune and kick-ass guitar playing? We need to mention, Neil is a fantastic guitar player. And you have to wonder, because he could have gone 2 routes back then, right? He was such a hot player. He could have easily been like a mega guitar hero in like a heavy metal or hard rock band. But he chose to stick with his wife and help her with her career. And now all these years later, they're looked at as the Pat Benatar, Neil Giraldo band as opposed to just Pat Benatar. It's like a duo type of thing. So after all these years, now it's like, equal billing between the two of them. But, had he not decided to stick with his wife and go off on his own, he could have been a very, very, very famous guitar stud. As it is, very notable player and really, really talented. Next up, coming in at number 5 from the Crimes of Passion album, which is my favorite album, probably most of yours too. Treat Me Right. Really good, crisp, hard rocker with some lethal guitar riffs, great vocal, really good tune. One of my favorites from that album. A lot of favorites from that album, actually. Next up, number 4, back to Precious Time. Promises in the Dark. Dig that song. That's, again, right around the time where Pat was going for more, Pat and Neil, I'm going to say, we're going for a lot more kind of pop melodies and song structures, but that still contains some of the hard rock fire of the early material. Okay, really good song, big hit, always dug it, still love hearing it to this day. Number 3, from the Crimes of Passion album, the sophomore release. Here we got a cover, which is, it's funny, we did that covers that are better than the original show recently, and I should have definitely mentioned this one. How about You Better Run, which is a tune originally done by the Young Rascals. That kicks ass. Pat and Neil's version. Amazing. Heavy. Cranking guitar work. Venomous vocals from Pat. If you doubt at all the vocal prowess of Pat Benatar, just listen to some of this stuff. Pat Benatar and Wilson. Doesn't get much better than that from that time period, right? All right, the top 2. Here we go. So my number 2 might surprise some of you. I just absolutely love this song. And again, it's from one of the later 80s albums. And it's kind of poppy, but it's still rocking a bit. And for me, it's just got one of the best choruses. It's just so anthemic. And I love watching them play it live. Invincible from Seven the Hard Way. We will be invincible. Love it. Just absolutely love that song. That's it. Kind of, again, it's a great tune. Kind of, for me, kind of a guilty pleasure, but considering all these other tunes here, but I absolutely love that song. And my number 1 song, it's been my favorite Pat Benatar song for a long time, from the Crimes of Passion album, the dark, mysterious, but very heavy Hell is for Children. I love the way that song kind of builds and builds and builds to that frantic climax with that searing guitar solo from Neil. Just a great song, great vocals, the rhythms are pounding, just a great, great song, and easily my favorite Pat Benatar song. So, how about some honorable mentions? Why don't we? All right, let's go all the way back to In the Heat of the Night, the first album. I really like her cover of John Mellencamp's song, I Need a Lover. I think she does a really good job on that. I dig it. The title track, In the Heat of the Night. That's kind of cool, kind of mysterious, a little jazzy. A song that almost made my top 10. In fact, it's probably, since we have a tie for 10, it'll either be at 11 or 12. Their cover of the sweet classic No You Don't. They do a great job on that. Pat sounds phenomenal on it. It's rocking. Love it. Just misses my top 10. From Crimes of Passion. I've heard it a million times. I probably never need to hear it again, but it's still a great freaking song. Hit Me With Your Best Shot, obviously. Biggest, to my knowledge, one of the biggest songs she ever released as a single. I'm not sure if it actually was the biggest selling, because she had a lot of ones that came later that did really, really well. But that was easily the biggest seller of the first 2 albums. Little Paradise, great song. I'm Gonna Follow You, another strong song. Her cover of the Kate Bush classic Wuthering Heights, I like that. Prisoner of Love, great tune. That sits just outside of my top 10. Out of Touch, great song. Another favorite from that album. From Precious Time, Just Like Me, another cover tune. Paul Revere and the Raiders song. Really, really good. The title track, Precious Time. I like that song a lot. Take It Any Way You Want It, good tune. Evil Genius, that's very strong. And their cover of the Beatles' Helter Skelter. Kick ass, right? A lot of good cover tunes they did early on. From Get Nervous, how about, what do we got here? Shadows of the Night. Anxiety, Get Nervous, that's a really good tune. The Victim, Little Too Late, kind of a minor hit for the band. I like that one a lot. I Want Out, and The Awesome Silent Partner. All right. From Tropico, not a huge fan of that album. We Belong, cool tune, good single. Love in the Ice Age, probably my favorite song off that album. That's a really strong rocker. From Seven the Hard Way, Sex as a Weapon. That also sits right outside my top 10. I was like, man, I really wish I could include this song. Sex as a Weapon is great. Red Vision, another great tune on that album. Kind of proggy, a little bit. From Wide Awake in Dreamland, which is the last album I'm going to kind of cover here, All Fired Up is a great tune. That was actually also just outside of my top 10. Cool Zero, good song. And the very underrated Lift 'Em Up. Lift 'Em On Up, sorry. That's a really strong tune from that album. So there you have it. So let's go over my top 10 one more time. So Hell is for Children, number 1. Number 2, Invincible. Number 3, You Better Run. Number 4, Promises in the Dark. Number 5, Treat Me Right. Number 6, Heartbreaker. Number 7, We Live for Love. Number 8, Fire and Ice. Number 9, Tell It to Her. And number 10, Love is a Battlefield, tied with Le Bel Age. Jamie, this one's for you. Hope you enjoyed it. One of our dedicated readers was a huge Pat Benatar fan. So that's Pat Benatar and Company, top 10 songs. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're on the mighty YouTube off and off and off. And we got all sorts of good stuff coming up. Don't turn that dial. We've got another classic album war coming right up. So don't miss it. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll have to check. If you've been following our Facebook page, you know what it's going to be, because I'm basically following the polls I do on the Facebook page. So I'm going to try and do these, if not every day, as often as possible during the week. So check that out, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.